The Eclipse Matriarch's shadows swallowed hope, until a human's touch wove unity. The human settlement, Glint Haven, rested on the crystalline surface of Pulsara, a moon orbiting a pulsar whose rhythmic flashes bathed the landscape in stark light and shadow. The Haven, a network of faceted shelters linked by resonant bridges, sheltered 4,300 souls, technicians, explorers, and caregivers extracting lumivance, a crystal that amplified neural signals for interstellar communication. Pulsara's relentless pulses tested endurance, casting shadows that seemed to whisper doubts. The settlers were steadfast, their tools humming, their bonds forged through shared care. Despite the moon's harsh cycles, they crafted a sanctuary, their shelters gleaming like prisms under the pulsar's glare. The Haven's core was its people, who exchanged gentle gestures to ease the pulsar's weight. In the communal hall, one woman's touch brought solace. Her name was Alara Vin, and her stories were about to mend a fractured reality. Her empathetic hands, weaving tales through contact, were the key to Glint Haven's endurance. Ilara, a lean 32-year-old with silver-streaked hair and eyes that held quiet warmth, wasn't a technician or explorer. She was the Haven's storyteller. In the hall, she shared tales through touch, her fingers tracing patterns on listeners' palms, sparking visions of distant worlds and kind hearts. Her stories, from tales of lost travelers finding kin to dreams of shared burdens, calmed the settlers, soothing the pulsar's stark rhythm. "Feel this one. It's about hope," she'd murmur, her touch sparking smiles. Ilara's gift wasn't mere words, it was connection, a surge of human empathy that united the Haven. She'd grown up on a barren outpost where touch was trust, and brought that warmth to Glint Haven. Her tales, etched in fleeting gestures or shared in quiet circles, were a beacon of comfort. Each evening, the hall filled with soft sighs as her hands wove unity. Tonight, her touch was about to face an otherworldly challenge. The hall was full, settlers feeling Ilara's tale of a child mending a broken star, when the Haven trembled, lights strobing in jagged shadows. Alerts blared, and the crowd's calm broke as screens flashed, revealing a vast structure piercing the pulsar's glow, a lattice of dark tendrils throbbing with inky light. The Umbravex had emerged, a shadow-wrought species, their fluid forms woven from living darkness, led by their Eclipse matriarch, Vorintha, whose shadow threads bound her kin in a suffocating unity. The Umbravex sought absolute conformity, their movements a dance of mirrored gloom, their existence a web of enforced sameness. They craved Pulsara's lumivance to extend their shadow realm, and Glint Haven, with its vibrant bonds and flickering lights, was a flaw they couldn't bear. The Haven's warmth faded, replaced by a chilling fear. The Umbravex's arrival was no mere encounter, it was a domination. Ilara's touch, her gentle tales, were about to become a shield. The Umbravex's first assault was a shadow weave, a pulse of darkness that seeped through the Haven like a tide, binding minds to Vorintha's will. It wasn't a voice, but a weight, a suffocating thread that demanded sameness, urging settlers to dismantle shelters and offer lumivance. Technicians dropped their scanners, explorers froze on bridges, and people moved toward the crystal vaults, eyes empty, steps uniform. Ilara, mid-tail with her hand on a settler's wrist, felt the shadow weave try to bind her thoughts, a pressure like sinking into night. But her touch, sharing a story of a lone heart finding kin, resisted, the empathy of her tale breaking. Vorintha's grip, her stories, a surge of human connection, kept her free, a light in the shadow's hold. She clasped her hands, heart racing, as the hall cleared, her companions now thralls of the Umbravex's will. Ilara knew she had to act swiftly, or the Haven was lost. Her fingers flexed, reaching for the command shelter, her mind already weaving. A plan, Ilara navigated stunned settlers, the haven's bridges swaying under pulsing shadows and shrieking alerts. She entered the command shelter, a crystalline hub with flickering screens and humming consoles, where Overseer Kale Torin, a broad-shouldered medic with a neural implant, struggled to stay alert, his grip firm on a control panel. The Umbravex structure loomed on the screens, its tendrils writhing like a living eclipse, and small, shadow-wrought drones were already slipping through conduits, dimming crystal walls. Kale's implant glowed, his gaze piercing despite the strain, locking on Ilara. "Vin, why aren't you bound?" he rasped, his voice steady. Ilara, breathless, explained. Her tactile stories broke the Shadow Weave's hold, and the structure's pulses were like a rigid thread. She proposed a bold plan: channel her tales through the Haven's neural relays, amplified by Lumivant's vibrations, to disrupt the Umbravex's control. Kyle, his face stern but hopeful, nodded. "Weave your stories, Ilara. Save us." Ilara hurried to the neural chamber, a glowing space of crystalline relays and humming conduits, clutching her data bracelet and a bundle of signal wires. The chamber's relay system, designed for communication, was her means to fight back, able to transmit neural signals across the Haven and beyond. She linked her bracelet to the system, uploading her story archive, tales of found families, shared dreams, and quiet triumphs, all felt through touch. To enhance the effect, she integrated Pulsara's Lumivant's vibrations, a resonant hum from her crystal scans, giving her stories a cosmic pulse. "Let's share some hope, Matriarch," she whispered, tracing a tale of a lost soul finding light. The relays hummed, spreading her tactile stories through Glint Haven, their empathetic warmth clashing with the Umbravex's shadow weave. The HFY structure's tendrils flickered, their inky glow dimming, and settlers began to stir, blinking as Ilara's touch reached their minds. Drones froze, their forms wavering, disrupted by the surge of connection. Ilara smiled, her stories now the Haven's shield. The settlers' awakening was uneven. Some gasped, others wept, but they were free, seizing tools to resist. Kale's voice echoed over the comms, calm and firm, directing teams to seal conduits and wield neural batons. Ilara kept her stories flowing, tales of mended hearts, dreams of unity, even a story of a star sharing its glow, each amplified by Lumivant's vibrations that pulsed through the relays. The system thrummed, carrying her touch across the Haven, its warm patterns breaking the Umbravex's rigid unity. Technicians cheered on the bridges, their spirits lifted as Ilara's tales warmed their minds. The drones retreated, their shadows sparking, unable to withstand the empathetic surge. But Ilara knew the Umbravex weren't finished. Vorintha's will was too deep. She pressed her hands to the console, sweat beading, determined to keep the Haven united. Her stories, once a comfort, were now a rebellion. Vorintha, within her shadow lattice, sensed the fracture like a tear in her woven realm. Her kin, bound. To her will wavered, their conformity unraveling under the human's touch. She intensified her shadow weave, its pulses tightening into a suffocating grip that dimmed the Haven's crystals, threatening to shatter them into darkness. Ilara's stories held firm. She traced a tale of a community rebuilding, her fingers steady as she shared its warmth. The settlers, emboldened, fought with renewed vigor, their batons sparking drones, sealing breaches with crystal patches. The Umbravex structure's pulses grew uneven, its tendrils twisting in disarray. Ilara's empathy, gentle yet fierce, was a thread in their web. She felt the weight of every gesture, knowing each tale kept her people free. The neural chamber became her sanctuary, and she wasn't yielding. The struggle wasn't easy. Drones kept emerging, slipping through new conduits, dimming entire shelters. The Haven's light waned, and alerts wailed as walls quaked under the Umbravex's shadow pressure. Ilara's fingers ached, but she kept weaving, tracing a story of a child uniting strangers, her voice guiding settlers over the comms. Kale sent teams to shield the neural core, but the drones were relentless, their shadows binding systems into rigid forms. Ilara boosted her tails with stronger lumivance vibrations, making drones flicker and fade. The settlers' cheers grew louder, their resolve fueled by her empathy. Vorintha's shadow weave adapted, weaving tighter threads that bound some fighters again. Ilara countered with a tale of shared burdens, earning sighs of effort from the chamber. She knew she had to push further, or the Haven was lost. Ilara seized a portable neural projector, linking it to her bracelet, and headed for the Haven's crest, a crystalline platform bathed in the pulsar's stark flashes. The crest was exposed, trembling under shadow winds, but its relay array could amplify her signal across Pulsara. She set up under a pulsing sky, the Umbravex structure looming like a living night. "Feel this, Matriarch," she called, tracing a tale of hearts entwined. The array surged, lumivance vibrations making drones waver and dissolve, their shadows fracturing. Kale's message flashed on her comm. "You're breaking them, Vin! Keep weaving!" The settlers battling below synced their batons to her, rhythm sparking drones with precision. Ilara's stories were now a rallying cry, her touch a beacon in the gloom. The Umbravex's tendrils writhed, their control fraying, but Ilara braced for their next move. The Umbravex evolved, their shadow weave blending Ilara's tails into their dark web, a warm spark that revitalized their kin. Their shadow structures docked at Glint Haven, trading lumivance for human goods, their drones swaying to Ilara's stories. Ilara, now a quiet legend, led storytelling circles, teaching technicians and explorers to share through touch. Her hall became a haven of connection, settlers exchanging tales of Earth, Pulsara, and dreams of new horizons. The Haven's technicians built a new relay array, spreading Ilara's tales to nearby systems, a beacon of human spirit. Kyle, his sternness faded, joined a circle, smiling at a tale of shared light. The Umbravex's crystal shone brighter, its hum a blend of human and alien. Pulsara's pulses gleamed under the Haven's glow. Ilara's empathy was no longer just a shield. It was a bridge to the stars. Years later, a grand Umbravex fleet arrived, not to dominate, but to honor, their tendrils pulsing with Ilara's old tales, a cosmic tribute. Ilara took to the crest, projector aglow, and wove her greatest tale, joined by settlers and Umbravex emissaries under Pulsara's flashes. She traced a story of stars united, her voice soaring, joined by thousands, human cheers, Umbravex hums. Kale sealed a lasting alliance, trading lumivance and knowledge for mutual protection. The Haven's shelters glowed like beacons, a center of life and connection in the pulsar's light. Children wove their own tales, their laughter echoing Ilara's spark. The Umbravex's lead emissary offered a new crystal, its glow a mirror of her care. Glint Haven was a legend, its name shared across the cosmos. Ilara's tales had reshaped the pulsar's light, a human spark that wove unity. The cosmos changed, Pulsara a beacon of hope, its trade routes alive with ships drawn to the Heartweaver's tale. Ilara's stories reached far worlds, inspiring. Defiance against cold rulers, her empathy a universal call to connect. The Umbravex's shadow weave carried her tales, their structures alive with new rhythms, a fusion of unity and care. Glint Haven's settlers grew bold, exploring deeper into Pulsara, their tools humming Ilara's stories. Kale, now a cosmic envoy, carried her tales to new species, his nod a seal of accord. The Haven's crystal became a site of pilgrimage, shining with tales of endurance. Ilara, silver hair brighter, kept weaving, her hands a wand of connection. Pulsara's shadows were no match for human spirit, its pulses dancing to a new rhythm. The cosmos warmed, and Ilara's spark endured. One night, Ilara stood on the crest, projector still, gazing at Pulsara's glow. An Umbravex structure hovered, its tendrils swaying to her last tail, a silent bond of kinship. She felt the haven's pulse, empathy, hope, unity. A light she'd kindled. The settlers gathered below, their cheers a chorus, children tracing her tales to the stars. Kale joined her, his implant humming, his nod proud. The Umbravex's crystal pulsed, its light a mirror of Ilara's essence. Pulsara, once a trial, was alive, its shadows a canvas for dreams. Ilara's empathy, a human spark, had woven a matriarch's realm and lit the cosmos, proving connection could triumph over control. She lifted her hands, ready for the next tale, knowing humanity's light would never dim. The Umbravex pressed on. Vorintha's shadow weave surged, a crushing pulse that shook the haven's core, dimming shelters and warping bridges into rigid lines. Ilara, on the crest, felt the platform quake, her hands trembling as she held her projector. She traced a new tale, a story of a wanderer uniting tribes, her voice soft but resolute over the comms. The array pulsed with lumivance vibrations, scattering drones from the crest, their shadows spiraling in disarray. Below, settlers rallied, sealing conduits with resonant patches, their faces warmed by Ilara's tales on every screen. The Umbravex structure's tendrils lashed out, binding shelters in darkness, threatening to erase them. Ilara's stories kept flowing, tales of found kin, dreams of shared light, each gesture a spark that freed minds. The haven held, its crystals flickering like a fading pulse. Ilara's heart thumped, knowing every touch mattered. Kale's teams fought fiercely. Explorers wielding signal disruptors. Technicians rerouting power to sustain the relays. Ilara's tales gave them strength, her touch a steady pulse through the chaos like a heartbeat for Glint Haven. She traced a story of a star embracing its shadow, her fingers steady as drones sparked and faded, their forms broken by her empathy. The Umbravex's tendrils kept striking, piercing the crest, forcing Ilara to sidestep as she wove. Her projector held firm, lumivance vibrations amplifying her tales into a radiant surge. Settlers below shouted, their voices echoing over the comms, inspired by her resolve. Vorintha's shadow weave shifted, weaving a denser pulse that bound some fighters again. Ilara countered with a tale of a circle unbroken, earning gasps of effort from the chamber. She felt the fight's weight, her stories the only thread holding the line. The battle endured for hours, the haven a mosaic of shadowed scars, its light dimming fast. Ilara's hands burned, but she kept weaving, tracing a tale of a heart mending. A world, her voice steady as she shared its hope. The Umbravex's drones adapted, their shadows thickening, slipping through new gaps to target the core. Kyle sent an urgent message. Vin, they're at the heart. Weave stronger. Ilara boosted the array's output, intensifying lumivance vibrations, making drones flicker and collapse. Her tales became a stream of resolve, stories of unity, dreams of light, even a tale of stars embracing night, all fueled by her care. The settlers below fought with fierce hope, their batons carving paths through drones. The Umbravex structure's tendrils writhed, its pulses faltering, but Vorintha's will was unyielding, her shadows refusing to yield. Ilara knew she had to reach her, to transform this struggle into something greater. Then, the Umbravex acted. An emissary appeared on the crest, a lithe, shadow-wrought figure with a glowing core emerging from a dark vortex. It was Vorintha's will-made form, a fragment of her essence, its presence chilling the air. Ilara, mid-tale about a community's embrace, paused, then pressed her hands to the projector. tracing a story of shared paths. The emissary's core pulsed, its tendrils swaying, as if feeling the tale's warmth. Ilara softened her stories, weaving tales of unity and care, her touch gentle yet firm. The emissary's glow warmed, its pulses aligning with her rhythm, a sign it was listening. Kyle, watching from the shelter, flashed a deal on a screen. Share the Lumivance, end the conflict. Ilara felt a glimmer of possibility, her stories now a bridge to the foe. The emissary stood still, waiting, as Vorintha's decision hung over them. Vorintha faced a wrenching choice, her essence a storm of conflict. Her kin thrived on conformity, their shadow weave a sacred bond, but Ilara's tales were unraveling their web, a spark of connection in their darkness. She could smother the haven, but Pulsara's pulses might shatter her kin's link, perhaps, even her own essence. Or she could embrace this human's empathy, risking her realm's uniformity. Ilara kept weaving, her voice steady, tracing a tale of light and shadow entwined, her care unwavering. The emissary's tendrils danced, its core humming Ilara's rhythm, a hesitant reply. Kale's deal glowed on the screen, a fragile hope for peace. The haven held its breath, drones hovering, as Ilara's tales awaited Vorintha's choice. Her touch, a human spark, was about to reshape the pulsar's light. The emissary extended a tendril, its glow forming a map in the air, gleaming with paths to Lumivance veins the settlers could harvest without crossing Umbravex bounds. Ilara, smiling, traced one final tale, a story of hearts joining hands, whispering, "Share this, Matriarch." Her voice carried, and the Umbravex structure pulsed back, mirroring her rhythm, a soft, shadowy hum that rippled across Pulsara. The drones withdrew, their forms fading, and the haven's alerts silenced, the air warm with relief. Kyle's voice echoed over the comms, steady but joyful. "Vin, you've done it, we're safe." The settlers cheered, their cries resounding through the bridges, a surge of human resolve washing over Glint Haven. Ilara leaned against her projector, hands trembling, her tales now a weary but proud hum. The Umbravex structure dimmed, its tendrils retreating, a quiet vow of accord. Glint Haven endured, its shelters scarred but radiant, a testament to one woman's empathy. Ilara's touch, once a solace, had become their deliverance. The haven surged back to life, teams hurrying to mend bridges and restore relays. Ilara's tales played on loop through the neural system, a shield against lingering shadow threads, her stories now a haven anthem. Kale tasked her with weaving more tales, blending Lumivance vibrations into the defense system to counter future threats. Explorers ventured to the mapped veins, harvesting Lumivance to repair the haven and trade with distant systems. The settlers' spirits soared, Ilara's name on every tongue, dubbed the Heart Weaver in hall gatherings. Children mimicked her gestures, tracing tales on each other's hands, their laughter a new light in the pulsar's glare. Ilara, weary but smiling, resumed her storytelling, her projector casting brighter visions. The haven's core pulsed stronger, its people bound by empathy. Pulsara's shadows felt less heavy, warmed by human care. Tales of Ilara's stand spread across Pulsara, carried by traders and explorers docking at Glint Haven. Other Umbravex kin learned of the human who touched, their matriarch, some resisting, others curious about this anomaly. Ilara kept weaving, her hall gatherings full, teaching settlers to connect through fear. She crafted new tales, stories of Umbravex shadows, dreams mirroring their pulses, each gesture a nod to their survival. The haven's technicians upgraded, the relays, making Ilara's tales a permanent part of the system, a radiant shield ready for challenges. Kale, his sternness softened, joined a gathering smiling at a tale of unity. The settlers' bonds grew stronger, a strength they'd never lose. Elara felt the weight of her role, her tales now a beacon for the Haven's spirit. Pulsara's pulses felt like a rhythm they could embrace. A year later, a smaller Umbravex structure appeared, hovering quietly, its tendrils pulsing with Elara's old tales, like a cosmic greeting. Elara took to the crest, projector glowing, and wove a new tale joined by half the settlers, tracing stories under Pulsara's flashes. The Umbravex sent another emissary, its shadowy form glowing warmer, offering a lumivance crystal, its hum matching Elara's touch. The settlers cheered, their voices a chorus, as Kyle sealed a trade agreement, exchanging lumivance for Umbravex knowledge. The Haven's shelters shone brighter, mended and fortified, a center of life under the pulsar. Elara's tales became a tradition, her hall a shrine to human connection. The Umbravex structure lingered, its tendrils swaying, as if feeling the warmth. Glint Haven was more than a settlement. It was a legend. Elara's spark had kindled a light that wouldn't fade. The Umbravex's accord wasn't just a pause, it was a shift. Their shadow weave now carrying traces of Elara's tales, a touch of human empathy in their conformity. Traders arrived at the Haven, sharing stories of the Heartweaver, their ships spreading her tales to far systems. Elara taught children to weave their own tales, their giggles filling the hall, a new generation of connection. Kyle, his sternness gone, gave Elara a quiet nod, calling her tales the Haven's true strength. The Umbravex's crystal was placed in the hall, a radiant reminder of their stand. Elara's empathy, once a spark, was now a flame, warming the Haven's core. Pulsara's shadows felt lighter, its pulses a canvas for human dreams. The settlers looked to the pulsar, ready for what lay ahead. Elara's hands, worn but ready, awaited the next tale. Glint Haven flourished as a trade center, its shelters expanding, its explorers humming with Umbravex-derived knowledge. Elara's tales were everywhere, etched into crystal walls, shared, on comms, even woven into Lumavant's halls as tokens of hope. Traders flocked to the Haven, drawn by tales of the human who touched a matriarch, their ships carrying her stories to distant stars. Pulsara, once a harsh frontier, became a nexus, its crystals gleaming under the Haven's light. Elara's hall gatherings were packed, her projector casting tales of unity and care, each story a tribute to their endurance. Children raced across, bridges, tracing tales, their voices a pulse for the future. Kyle's command shelter thrummed with life, his implant tuned to Elara's rhythms. The Umbravex's accord held, their structures frequent visitors, their shadows softer now. Elara's spark had transformed Pulsara, proving empathy could outshine domination.